Now, what does it mean by safe? Well, the big narrative that the companies are pressing, and it's a reasonable narrative at a first step, is to talk about reducing fatality rates. And so the industry will say, well, we need to be at least as safe as a human driver on average. Now, that should mean injuries as well as fatalities and potentially property damage as well. But the narrative always comes down to fatalities. We're here to save lives. Okay, that's a great motive. What does that mean? Well, in San Francisco, depending which of the recent years you look at, there's about 75 million to 125 million miles between fatalities in San Francisco. Let's round it off to an even 100 million for discussion, which is in the ballpark of the national average, which also fluctuates up and down. That includes the impaired drivers. So where's the bar set for as safe as a human on average? It's 100 million miles between fatalities, including all the drunk human drivers. If you take out the drunks, it's going to be a lot higher. But that's not all. There are other things that you have to consider. If you had 100 million miles between fatalities, but all those fatalities were pedestrians and not a single was a passenger. Now, I'm not saying we're going to get this outcome, but I'm just illustrating. If all the risk shifts on pedestrians and none are for occupants, that's going to be a problem, especially for pedestrians. And so you can't get a good average, but at the same time impose risk disproportionately on some segments of the population. That's not okay. So safety is not only improving or at least meeting the average, it also is avoiding disproportionate risk on identifiable segments of the population. And there's another thing. It's not okay to run through red lights because, well, my car thinks it's probably fun. I'm going to run through red lights and I reduce the fatality rate. So why are you giving us a hard time about running through red lights? That's not okay. The cars are supposed to obey the traffic laws like everyone else. So running red lights, stop signs, other violations of road rules that are not driven by exigent circumstances are not okay. They have to follow the rules. And if they don't like the rules, well, that's a great discussion about having the rules changed. But the companies can't simply decide not to follow the rules. They should also conform to industry safety standards because we won't know how the fatalities turn out for a long time. And conforming to safety standards is how every industry other than this one achieves safety. The industry has written its very own engineering safety standards, consensus from industry representatives and others, and they should be following them. In particular, at the state level, you should consider SAE J3018. This is not how you build the robotaxi. This is about how to ensure that testing is performed safely and is clearly a state kind of regulation that has nothing to do with the equipment safety that the federal government worries about. And finally, you need to address other ethical and equity concerns, such as local preemption and manufacturer accountability for harm that I'll go into in this talk. So when you say safe doesn't just mean lower fatality rate. It means you have to address all 5 of these concerns, or at least some stakeholders can reasonably say, now, I'm sorry, you may have a nice number, but that's not safe enough for our needs and for our legitimate interests.